John Kabakis here with Jerry Cordero, the new owner of Miniwerks. Jerry, thank you for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. I'm excited to be able to talk to a dealer. Welcome to My Take.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, Jerry, your name is kind of new. You've been heading Miniwerks now for how many months?
Actually, about mid to late January is about the time that the owner and I got together and made an informal swap.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you a collector yourself? Are you interested in cars? What do you do?
Yeah, so I've obviously, like most collectors, we all have a deep passion for cars. I think that's the basis of collecting anything, even if it's planes or boats. You've got to like the 1-to-1 scale first, right?
Yeah.
And so since I was a kid, I can see pictures of myself where my dad would basically put me in a big metal tin Jeep or something. So, and then it, progressed to like Hot Wheels and stuff like that. So I remember still when I was like 5 years old and someone gave me a AMC 1/24 scale AMC Monza kit. And that's kind of where it all started. I didn't like the car, but I was just amazed at the fact that I had to put it together, and it ended up being, it kind of looked like the picture on the box, but it just something about the process of putting those parts together and coming up with a final product just touched the nerve with me. And ever since, it just went from there.
Yeah, I think, all of us that are involved in a hobby, I think you're absolutely right about having a passion for the ones. And I think for those of us that have had this lifelong pursuit of automobiles and automobilia, can look back to a moment where something just really grabbed our attention. And so it's good that you remember that. It's good that you're a car guy, because there's some people in the hobby that aren't really car guys. They're model guys. That's okay. We all have we all have different motivations for collecting. So have you been a collector for a long time?
I've been again, I built plastic kits, like anyone else. But in terms of 1/43rd scale, I've been collecting since probably, I can tell you the exact time it all started was in 1983. I subscribed to Road and Track, like anyone else who likes sports cars, Car and Driver, and it was the December '83 issue of Road and Track. I got it because it had a Lotus and Ferrari in it. And I'm also an avid Formula One fan. And so late in the season, that's when you start getting some of the race coverage articles in Road and Track. So I got it for that. But then there's an article in the back that I discovered about cars and model scale cars. And that's where I was so amazed when I saw the pictures. I never knew it existed, because I think, as you're aware, in the United States, the 1/43rd scale is kind of it's not a popular, it's not very well known. Definitely in the early 80s, where I started, I didn't know it existed. And so, but when I saw those little gems, I quickly rushed at the end of the article, looked up all the stores and hobby stores they listed for all the models. And you can imagine I was typing up letters requesting for catalogs, etc. There was no internet yet, so you can imagine, this is like kind of grassroots hobby, kind of looking up stuff. And most of those people, even though the hobby stores were based in Los Angeles, Valley Plaza, Mark Models, and Mini Grid, who's actually based and still exists in Canada, they're far and few between. And so that article basically set the foundation for me in 1/43rd, because without that article, I wouldn't ever not only discovered the scale, but I wouldn't begin to know where to source the model kits.
Well, I love that. Those memories are just so precious. So tell us a little bit about Miniwerks. I know Miniwerks have been around for a long time. How did you get involved with them?
Yeah, so Miniwerks was started in 2002 by Mike McCormick. He's based out of the Sacramento area here in Northern California. He started it basically when he was laid off from his corporate position of almost 20 years. And as part of the severance package, the company had given him a consultant to discuss what he can do next. And one of which the person asked him, "Do you have any hobbies?" And when he said, "I like collecting model cars," she started to steer him into possibly making that a business. And before long, he started collecting Joe F models, etc., and started selling them on eBay. That started to bring in a lot of revenue, and before long, he and another friend, person by the name of Jonah Wilson, who's based in New Zealand, set up his website, and that's how it all began in 2002. I ran into him basically, as I said, as I started collecting. It was primarily I was collecting Formula One 143rd scale kit cars, Tamio, Hi-Fi, etc. And I hadn't really seen the hand built stuff yet. And the few that I did, like AMR, they were way priced beyond my means. I was just a regular kid doing paper routes, that sort of thing. So, even the $25 kits from Tamio were a little pricey for me because you can get an AMC kit for probably only $12. But somewhere along the process, I ran into Miniwerks from a lot of other connections as I started to discover 143rd, when at the time I discovered the hand builds. But originally, ironically, the hand builds I discovered through Diecast, mini champs, and that sort of thing. Because I was looking for a classic car in San Francisco, and while waiting for the dealer, there was a display case with some mini champs diecast. And again, once again, light bulb came on. I said, I didn't know they had hand built stuff, and that kind of started me. And then I started to look for mini champ dealers in the Bay Area, and I ran into someone else who then directed me to higher end stuff like BBR, and then that's how I discovered Mike. I discovered him primarily because of the internet.
Mm-hmm. I think you're hitting on all of the legendary names that we all remember from when we first got involved in a hobby. And you had your introduction to Miniwerks. What transpired that led you to want to head the company? Obviously, Mike was thinking about retiring, and so how did you get involved in taking it over?
Yeah, so basically for me, really quick, is I had worked in legal for most of my life in San Francisco, and at about the time, middle of the COVID years, I was finally allowed to work from home. But then things came up, family issues, where I really couldn't mitigate still handling the job. My job was pretty full loaded that I had to just quit. And so, but being able to work from home, I was able to save so much money because I typically commuted to San Francisco. As a matter of fact, John, I was commuting to San Francisco from Vallejo every day in my 240Z, 1972. So I was a happy camper driving in my classic car, and driving in. So I had a pretty great life. There was a cost involved, but by being able to work from home, I literally saved thousands of dollars. That's the money I lived on when I quit trying to sort things out. So on or about December of last year, I saw a posting from Mike that he was going to wind down and shut Miniwerks because he decided to just move on, and he had just gotten a new high corporate position. So I hadn't bought anything from Mike for a while during COVID because I just kind of scaled down. And then, like most collectors, we were bummed out. And I was sitting there one evening during Christmas, and I was thinking, I don't have a job. Miniwerks is shutting down. The world's crumbling around me. Pandemic. And then something just lit up and said, what if I just took over Miniwerks? Would I be able to just eke out a living at the same time doing something that would be fantastic, like doing something you love? And so it was the next morning I emailed Mike, and before he knew it, we were just, chatting about it. And within days, we basically ironed it out. He was extremely excited because he wanted his baby to basically continue. In no way did he think he was going to be able to let it keep going, that no one would be interested at all. And so it was perfect. It was like a perfect storm for us.
So you've been around the hobby for a while. You've been a collector. You obviously walked into this knowing that the hobby, it can be a lot of fun. It can't always be lucrative. Being a dealer is a little bit of a challenge, especially today. But you were familiar enough with Miniwerks, and you're familiar enough with the major brands that it takes to make a dealership successful. What brands are you going to be carrying? Are you same line that Miniwerks had? Are you adding anything to it?
As a matter of fact, so Mike used to carry a wider range, a diverse range of models. Right now, he's scaled down, especially due to economic conditions. I'm currently distributing for makeup out of Japan and also EMC, which is based out of Ukraine. Those are my two current licensed manufacturers. But beyond that, and also because I'm also starting slow and I'm going to work at it slow, and I have a little bit of a slant from what Mike used to do. Now, I'm sure you understand, 10 years ago, the industry has changed and economically. I mean, just also, I think it's attributable to the collectors, and we can discuss that later. Basically, everyone's getting older, right? And we're starting to lose a lot of these guys who collected the kind of cars that we normally sell and see. But those two are the primary foundations of makeup for Miniwerks for me right now is basically makeup, and for the newer cars, and of course EMC for the nice older Bugattis, that sort of thing, Mercedes, the older aged cars. But the other angle, I'm sorry, John, the other part of it is because I'm looking to not only expand for dealership, but I'm more angling for consignment, and we can talk that about later. How I see the industry moving in the future is where I'm trying to steer Miniwerks in a unique space. Because I don't see it being the same way as when I first started, or definitely when I used to collect 3 models a month. It's not going to be the same. I'm not going to be able to support that anymore. There's not going to be that same number and diversity of collectors. If anything else, economically, at least for a time being, until we get out of these economic turbulent times. So.
Well, you've picked two high-end manufacturers. I've been in contact with Andre at EMC a couple of times, and boy, they just have a difficult road to hoe. But it's been really good to see them introducing some new models. So, and of course, makeup is just high quality. Do you see your clientele as a more discerning type of collector?
Definitely. I think you're well aware. I know that you're well connected with Brooklyn, for example, and you can probably attest that just the price alone basically excludes these products to most of the population. And but that's the other thing. I mean, one of the other things is I specialize, and I'm looking to specialize in 143rd. And I'm sure you'll be surprised because a lot of Americans, again, they still don't know the scale. But on top of that, the industry is shifting to the larger scales. And I understand the 118s, for example, have blown up since the time I used to collect UT models and mini chomps, etc. They're large, they're wonderful. They can be extremely, extremely accurate and detailed. And I understand that. And the prices are proportional to that size. But for me, growing up 143rd and being able to handle that like 20-part white metal kit and turn it into just kind of a miscellaneous pile of stuff into a little simple but accurate model, that to this day is something that's lit in me. But I have to change it. The industry, it's not going to support 143rd because the young people are migrating to 118th or even the 112, especially with the kids coming out of Model Factory Hero, the wonderful detail that they have. Everybody wants a 112, but I have to say, I've got about 350 plus 143rd models, and I never see them, especially because my wife just doesn't have any room for them, but they're all in bins. I can't imagine what these 118 scale collectors, how they can possibly even begin to appreciate their models. You're going to have to buy a mansion or something.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm in exactly the same position. We've got a relatively small house, and my wife very kindly tolerates my 143rd obsession. But I've got a couple of 118s sitting around. I love them. You're right. They're huge. The detail on them is incredible, but they take up so much room. It's not just the model; it's the box and the whole thing.
Oh yes, you got to keep all that stuff.
And then we're talking about considerably more expensive as well. I've been a 143rd fan for a long time. And yeah, we've all been aware of the fact that over in Europe it's the preferred scale, and you're right, over here not quite so much. But as I see some of the manufacturers moving into more recent releases, cars from the 70s, maybe even the 80s. You look at the Malays area, and those cars are selling well. And I'm not so sure that the hobby's shrinking as much as it's shifting. So, we've got a generation of collectors that are just entering it right now, that grew up watching these cars on TV, Kojak, Charlie's Angels, that sort of thing. And
Starsky and Hutch.
yeah, Starsky and Hutch. Those are the cars that these guys aspired to, and they're really not interested in buying another 1959 Cadillac with big fins. That market will be around for a long time, but I see a shift in it, and I think makers like makeup kind of catered to the guy that's looking for something a little bit more technical, a little bit more modern, and so I think the shift is good. I think a lot of these younger folks that are getting into 1/18 and 1/12 are going to realize you can get just about as much detail for less than a third, 15% of the money you would spend on those large models, and you could have more of them.
No, you're right. You're right. But I have to take into account that if there is kind of a shrinking, because I have to tell you, John, when in terms of my order list for client pre-orders, half of them are for 1/18 scale. And I actually don't stock 1/18. I primarily stock 1/43, but I'll order any scale, anything for any client that they wish, as long as I can do so and it's in stock, or for whatever brand they want, I can try to source things. But I typically don't order just for the sake of ordering anything beyond 1/43, because that's just my preferred. But I don't disparage any other scale. They're wonderful. I mean, if I can, if I can only source poacher kits, I'll stock them all over. But I don't. My wife's not gonna let me store them, so I'm gonna have to figure out a place to put this stuff.
I hear you. So do you have resources you can get from other makers? And
yeah, so that leads into the other kind of slant that I was thinking when I first discussed taking over Miniwerks from Mike. To be honest, as you're well aware, I mean, because of the economic conditions, it's not like everyone's particularly buying as they used to. So I think that, there's been some weeding out where a lot of the general collectors have kind of held on, or kind of only chosen certain times to purchase if there's something they really want, or something they think that it's really kind of could fit into their collection. Versus the casual, every month I've got to get something, whatever the newest thing is. But in terms of the real collectors, probably like you and myself, we're always on the hunt, right? As long as those guys are still around, they always exist. And it's for that group that I told Mike, where I'm not trying to break the bank and just keep Miniwerks and aim for those glory days where you're selling X amount. But I'm looking more, and I told him my idea that for 1/43, I think it's coming to this crossroads where I'm going to start the dialogue about it becoming an art form. In terms of it's not just about collecting, because the guys who are still collected because not just they fit in their collection, because they see, there's this beautiful piece of model there that's just, for them, I believe, goes beyond the technical replication. And that's where I think the AMRs and the higher end builders from Europe kind of touch on, and of course a lot of the Asian builders, what they put into models, where it might not even have been as accurate, say, as a Spark model today, which is extremely accurate, well made, well detailed for a very nominal cost, runs into hundreds of thousands of units. But there's something about something that someone literally did and created with their hands and only with their eyes, instead of a 3D modeler. And in so doing, I can see, not to be morbid, I can see a lot of the collectors who have these massive collections and they're starting to weed them out, John. And I want Miniwerks to at least be both a place for new things, space for and resource for everything in the past as well as the present, and also a place to go when it's time for you to like maybe shed
Yes.
some of those things. Because in that way, that's how we can bridge the new guys who are always wanting every color of Lamborghini, no, the man, and every combination. And then they'll see these things they never saw before, which I just recently went to probably one of the most preeminent collectors in the world. His collection has to be at least over $1 million. And I saw things I thought I didn't even know existed. Things done by Buisson in Paris, Bugattis that are like one of a kind. I'm just, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think that if you see that and other new guys are exposed to it, they can't not appreciate it as well. But there isn't going to be a bridge to that if there isn't a place to see those things. That's who I want Miniwerks to be, a place that bridges the old things and bridging it with the new things.
So this is the consignment idea you were talking about.
Correct.
Do you have a
Correct.
general idea how that's going to work?
Well, Mike McCormick has always done that. It was a primary source of his revenue, as a matter of fact, because a lot of collectors were he had worked with a lot of builders in Asia and Europe, and also in the United States. Peter Wingfield, unfortunately, he passed away, but he was one of. I have a lot of Peter's builds. It's fantastic, and so basically, to builders and also for people wanting to sell their collection, they'll come to us. We strike up a percentage based on the mall or volume, and I post them online or sell them on eBay for them on their behalf. Unfortunately, a lot of times what happens too is the collector would pass away and the loved one would reach out to us, and then we would help handle the liquidation of the estate in terms of the model cars, and that's where we can come in too.
I think that is so vitally important. I ran a program called Cash for Collectors for the Diecast Zone for several years. And the number of people that wind up with somebody's collection, their father, their grandfather, their uncle, their brother, their husband passed away and left these cars, and they don't know anything about it. And finding somebody that they can trust, that will give them good guidance. You got all those guys that are run in there and cherry pick things and, take all the good stuff and leave all the other stuff. But yeah, and you know how that works. But there's, having a dealer that they got. My father-in-law just passed away 2 months ago, and he's got a huge collection of tin toys.
Oh,
Vintage trucks, Tonka, all this stuff. And before he passed away, he called me. He said, "Now, my son's going to need your help just distributing the collection." And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about tin toys." He said, "But the hobby." And so having a network of people, when you become known as a resource for folks that need help, just either trimming things down or relieving it before something tragic happens, or even disposing of an inheritance, that's going to be really valuable. And when you find stuff like you found with that one collection that's really rare, I think people love that.
no, I know, and that's a wonderful thing about Miniwerks, because Mike had created the forum for Miniwerks. It's always been there from the beginning, and it's just a wonderful resource, because that's basically where all the collectors, whether you buy from us or not, they're just free to come in and exchange all their ideas and all the history, and of course all the pictures of all their collection. And as you know, every collector loves to show off their collection. So and you just got to give them the space, and that's what we want to do.
I see you got a couple there in front of you. What do you have there?
Yeah, so basically this is what we currently have. We've got the Bugatti 57 here from EMC, and I've got two cars here from Makeup. These are, again, my two manufacturers that I have licenses for right now. And so yeah, so again, these are all 143rd, specifically the EMCs. I'm you would probably consider me a young person, but when you see these cars, makeup and EMC. It just rivals 118th, 112. And for me, I'm biased. I think it's even more so because it's smaller.
Mhm.
I mean, for
Yeah.
me to have this tiny thing sitting here and it literally the way it looks. I mean, I know big is bad. I've got the mini champ Senna in the back. It's about a one, I think it's a 1/6 scale sitting behind me. You probably can't see it. But I mean it's big and stuff. But for me, I can make anything big because I don't need to find microscopic screws. But to make like these guys here, the detail, especially on this Bugatti, and it's just so wonderful. The
I've got
smaller it is for me, the better.
I've got the Bugatti, and you're right. It's just art, and I share that fascination with miniaturization. And to look at that Bugatti, and to look in the interior
Oh yeah.
and see the steering wheel and what they've done with the interior on it's just absolutely incredible. But that's what EMC's been doing since the get-go.
No, I know. And I just discovered them recently. I have to be honest, John. I was a young guy. I'm looking at race. If it's not F1, I'm looking at Ferraris, right?
Yep.
And so forth. But then all of a sudden I discovered EMC and I was like, it doesn't matter how old I am. That's a beautiful car.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you have a favorite model in your collection?
I actually don't have a favorite. It's funny because Mike used to ask me because ironically Mike, the owner and founder of Miniwerks, he used to ask me because he doesn't really collect. And I think that's what saved him, right? I used to tease him. And I said, I think that's what just saved him because you weren't touching from but for me, I always told him like the minute I'd have one thing I want, and then the next day or the next week, there's something else. And that's what I think keeps me going because the minute I stick to one thing, I'll probably be static.
Yeah,
So
I'll
at
tell
any
you something.
given day or something, it'll change. And that I'm fine with
I get that. My next model is always going to be my last one.
that.
And
Tell that I'll tell that to my wife, and she'll come in here and tell you exactly what that statement means.
yeah, I tell you, I've had several holy grails, and when I get it, I'm absolutely thrilled that I got it. I open it up, and I go, okay, this is it. Now I've got everything on. Oh, there's another one. so so I love the hunt.
I
Uh,
will tell you one thing, John. Like I told you, I recently got invited to a special viewing of someone's massive collection, and this collection, it's not just in breadth of numbers, but each piece is basically I've never seen kind of stuff. And I thought I knew what my holy grails were, but I was looking at them all day long, and he reinvented a whole bunch of them for me. I couldn't believe it. I mean, they're fantastic, and it's part of that where I want Miniworks to be, where if I can coax some of these builders, not necessarily to give up some of the things that they want to weed out or exchange, but if in any way to exchange not only their knowledge and their history, but also maybe some of the pictures again. Show your collection. I mean, that's what's going to help drive these young people because all it took was a road and track picture for me of the Bostica Ferrari race car by Villeneuve. For me, to this day, I look at that picture, I'm like, I'm gonna go. Until now, I want to find that kit. I know it's a little pricey now. I should have gotten it in the '80s. It was only $200.
but of course, in the '80s, $200 was everything.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can buy a car with $200.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we find you? I know you're on the web, but what is your website?
So Miniworks is basically www.miniworks.com. And from there, right now we hadn't had a full transfer. I'm looking to have an official rollout sometime in 2024. I'm preparing and making negotiations for new commissions that are really going to be exciting, and kind of like spark up the juices of a lot of collectors. Brush the cobwebs. Nothing too extravagant, but definitely to get people interested because I know a lot of the young guys they only like to buy when there's only so many of them. So
Yeah, that's my primary motivation is exclusivity.
Yes,
You tell me
yes,
limited edition, I got to have it. I don't care what
yeah,
it is.
yes, that's right. And
Yeah.
so I'm looking into that. I'm hopefully I can talk to Andre about a commission for some ideas I had for EMC. So we'll see. Definitely. But the rollout will be next year. Again, you can find all you need from me from the website.
And will we be able to access the form from there?
Yes, the forum had always been a tab on the Miniwerks website. It's still ongoing, etc.
Okay. Just two or three more questions. I'll let you go. You spent a lot of time with us. Thank you. I think we got a pretty good idea on where you believe the hobby's going, and I agree with you. I think the specialization, maybe lower production runs, exclusivity, more attention to art and detail. I just love all that stuff. What advice do you have for somebody that's in the hobby right now? And what advice might you have for somebody just getting into it?
Yeah, so someone in the hobby, I'm almost positive because as you're probably well aware, anybody who's collecting anything, be it watches or model cars, they're extremely focused and they always know what they want, right? And if anybody introduces them to something they really want, they'll never say anything about it because there'll be a cost involved and they're gonna keep it in their breast until they can jump on that and get the best price. But my advice to anyone who's still collecting is to have faith that places like Miniwerks is going to continue. Like I told Mike, we're going to continue your vision. We're going to continue people's enthusiasm and passion for the automobile, and then we're going to expand it. For me, I'm going to expand it to newer heights, as you said, exclusivity, because we're losing some of the general. Maybe when the economy gets much better, we'll look forward to that. But for now, we're going to focus on those guys who stuck around, and we're going to bring exclusive sets. We're going to focus on quality, but we're going to bring it back to the more rarer stuff. And that's what I've been trying to collect here and there since January. I've been negotiating with people around the world and trying to purchase some of their collections that they're weeding out because I'd like to populate Miniwerks again with a lot of old stuff. And it doesn't necessarily have to be high end. For example, I just picked up a Solido Ferrari, which just came out of like a Matchbox box, but to me it's fantastic because the shape for a simple diecast with like basically rudimentary wheels, it just looks fantastic. Even though it has a patina on the decals, to me that's also fantastic. For the casual observer who's has a curiosity why there's such a thing as 143rd, I'm hoping that the site will touch on. I'm hoping that they'll establish some kind of, if they don't have any attachment to the automobile, that they're gonna see the work of art. They're gonna see beyond. It's not gonna be a Hot Wheels. It's gonna be something that's, that's just very unique that required a human being to like put an effort in. And now I can't capture everyone out there because not everyone's gonna have. But I only need to capture those few people who have that soul within them, and that's all that matters. Because we don't need it. Doesn't we want to be exclusive anyway, don't we, John? At the end of the day, that we don't want everyone to have the same model. So
Right. That's right. Yeah. Well, Jerry, this has been a pleasure. I'm excited for you. I think you got a bead on what you want to do, and I'm really going to look forward to what you do in 2024. But meantime, the things you have in front of you, your basic philosophy, and what I love is I just love it when I find somebody in the hobby that's at a dealer or manufacturer level that has that passion, that has the heart for the hobby and understands collectors. Not everybody that's making and selling models gets this, and you get it, brother. So I'm just thrilled for what might lie ahead for you. I want to thank you for the time. I'll have all the contact information up on the screen here. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be able to forward them to you as well. So thank you, Jerry. It's been great talking.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. It's been an honor. Thank you.